And I would yield to Ms. Sheila Jackson-Lee 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, let me thank you for your kindness and certainly the kindness of the ranking member for allowing me to proceed today. Thank you. Let me also thank you for your good works on this issue. It certainly has been a very long journey, and I think America can take heart that there are sometimes a number of unique issues that there is bipartisan unity and concern that has been expressed by this committee. To Ambassador Freed, let me thank you for your service. I think we have not been on the phone, but we have been on the phone in the past. And I think you can understand, I've heard a little bit of members questioning and don't want to attribute frustration to their questioning, but I think you can assume that there is a great deal of frustration as to where we are. And so I'd like to start, first of all, well, however we may have determined it, whether we got it by word of mouth, whether or not there are other means, can we establish as a U.S. government that the residents of Camp Ashraf and those who have been relocated are disarmed or without arms?
As I said, I've got to be extraordinarily careful and cautious because some of these issues are matters under litigation. It is true as a matter of the historical record that during the period when the United States had troops in Iraq, we judged that the camp was largely disarmed with no heavy equipment. That took place some years ago. This issue, I have to say, came up suddenly. 3 weeks ago, it was not on my list of things to worry about. On my list of things to worry about are the completion of the convoys from Ashraf to Liberty in safety so that Ashraf can be closed, and very much on the mind of the U.S. Embassy in Iraq and the UN and the State Department generally is the issue of finding ways for the people at Camp Liberty to leave Iraq in safety and security. And that's where our efforts, that's where we want to put the bulk of our efforts. We've come this far, we're not there yet. We need to finish this process, and that's going to take a lot of work. Anything that drives us backwards, I'm against. Anything that moves us forward, I'm for.
I can totally agree with that. So let me do this without putting you in the crosshairs. I think it is very important to clear up the representation that has now taken to the airwaves and to places far beyond this room. Because the good work that you are trying to do, the good work that members have tried to encourage, some having visited the region, should not be now either tainted or undermined by the cybersphere, meaning something has gone into massive airwaves, massive hearing, and massive understanding, and it makes it very difficult. And so let me proceed in my questioning, and so I'm making an official request on the record to have that clarified. If you're not able to clarify it today, and whatever methods have to be utilized, we need to have that clarified. And I say that because we do know remaining at Camp Ashraf are families, or I believe there are children, but just by the nature of humanity, I know there are people who are frail, who are not as well as others, and need to have an orderly departure from the present status. So if I missed it, I apologize to my colleagues. Do you have an inventory of individuals who are left in terms of age, health conditions, children, new births, etc.? Do we have any of that?
We do have an approximate profile of the residents. There are few, if any, children, and I have heard of no births in many years, if ever. We do have a profile There are some who are disabled and require special care, and that has been one legitimate concern, that they be given the support they need. We are learning more about the people at Camp Huria as the interviews proceed. As I said earlier, and at the end of March at a conference in Geneva, I announced that the United States would be receiving referrals from the UNHCR and looking at them on an individual basis. We need to step up and do our part to show that we're part of the solution in all ways, not just moving people from Huria to, not just moving people from Camp Ashraf to Camp Huria, but out, and we have to show leadership. And I will be frank, the support of the Congress in this is critical, and I thank you for it. I really do. And I thank the chairman for his support.
Chairman, could I conclude? I see you moving on that button. Can I conclude with just one roundup, if I can get it rounded up? Again, I may have missed the answer, but I believe we want to do right. It looks like we've been talking about the safety and security of Camp Ashraf for a very long time. I served on this committee, have been serving for a while, and certainly not the time frame of my chairman, but had the privilege of having been able to serve, but I also serve on Homeland Security. So this has been in the eye of the storm for a very long time. Could you give us today a date when you will complete, or there will be a completion of those at least out of Camp Ashraf into Camp Huria, and then the process of relocating? What can we look forward to? And I will end by this last point. I see a light at the end of I know that you're very sensitive. I'm a lawyer to an ongoing case. But let me just publicly say, I want every manner of vetting to occur. We have Iran and the oppression of Iran in our eye. The world has it in their eye. These individuals are Iranians. However, the MEK now remains as maybe the existing opposition and resistance, but I don't know whether anyone can document today, on this day, that they are terrorists. Whatever process we can move along, we will be far better off if we are assuredly having vetted them and moved them off the terrorist list. This will aid in any manner of things that I think we're all trying to do. So I'll just make that point, but let me, you look hesitant to comment, but let me just try to get a definitive time frame that you think the removal of these individuals or the relocating of these individuals can occur.
I can't give you a precise time frame because the movement of convoys is beyond our control, but let me try to be responsive to your question as best I can. Convoys have been about 400 persons, a little less than 400 persons per convoy. We've had 5 convoys, almost 2,000 people. The convoy started in February, so that's 4 months, 5 convoys. We don't know, assuming there are between 3,200 and 3,400 people at Camp Ashraf, that means 3+ convoys. The Camp Ashraf leaders suggested once the convoys could be a little bigger to get out faster. They made that suggestion at one point. Let's say 3 more convoys. How fast they move depend on a lot of factors beyond our control. But if you do the math, right, 5 convoys, 4 months, 3 convoys remaining, you can, at that point your math is as good as mine. Then there's at least this is knowable. We can have an educated way to frame up the timing. Much less knowable is the issue of resettlement, and it is important that this process begin. The people at Camp Liberty, at Camp Huria, ought to see that there is a way out. They're out of Camp Huria in safety and security. There have been a few that have left, but these are individuals, and we need to see that process moving ahead. That's where my office, that's where the Department of State is putting its efforts, working with the UN, the UNHCR, and other interested governments. That will increasingly be and should be our priority. You said it well, ma'am. Light at the end of the tunnel, an old cliche, but it works for this. But we're not going to get there on autopilot. It's going to take at least as much work to have a good outcome as we've put into it so far. That work we're prepared to do, and it's my hope that everyone will look forward and find ways to move this ahead while we can.
Mr. Chairman, I cannot thank you enough for your kindness, and I'll just say to you as I inquire of this committee, whatever we can do, those of us who you've been courteous enough to extend time to join in the delisting of the MEK, I think that will go a long way for the resettlement of those who are now in Camp Ashraf. I just heard Ambassador Freed, who I take at his word, and I'm going to compliment the administration for still staying in the fight and moving these individuals along. But if there is any hindrance by Iraq that stops a convoy from moving faster than under 4 months, let's find out what that is. And if there's any hindrance in now moving to the next step of delisting the MEK for many reasons, I hope that we can work together in a bipartisan way to provide some assistance from the Congress to move this along and move it along now.
Thank you very much,
I yield back.
Ms. Jackson Lee, and we are grateful for your involvement in this issue.